All right, hey everybody, and welcome to ChiuStream, where we talk about art and life as an artist. I'm your host, Bobby Chiu, and I also have on here my co-host, Matt Lyon.
Nice to meet you guys.
Hey, Matt, how's it going? So Matt is one of my very good friends, all the way back to college,
20 years,
Sheridan
yeah.
College, back in the day, and so he's an artist as well, and thought, why not bring one of my buddies up here and have his insight as well. We're going to be doing a stream together, and if it's your first time on the stream, lucky you caught it live. You can go to slido.com. That's where you can ask your questions. Okay, you can type in questions anonymously, or you could put in your name and we give you a nice shout out. But the best thing of all is that you don't have to sign up for an account. It's really just to ask questions on the stream. Okay, so why don't we get started? And Matt, this is your first time doing these streams, so what do I do during these streams? I usually have a video. And in this video, I am either painting or drawing or doing something like that.
Right.
So today, I'm doing a traditional drawing. What's it gonna be, Matt? Well, you're gonna have to find out because you don't know. You just came in. All right. Also, before we get on to any questions, I had five little thoughts, because today's topic is all about how to be taken seriously as an artist. Now, you remember in the very beginning, when you first graduated and you're a student, people have no reason to take you seriously.
Absolutely.
And I definitely remember that as well. Actually, I don't know if you know this, but in the very beginning, I couldn't get a job. So then I thought, oh, well, teaching, that's a good start. And people somewhat respect teachers.
Somewhat for sure.
So yeah, I'll teach. And then I went to try to apply to teach, and they said, well, how much experience did you have teaching? And I said, none. And then they said, well, you need experience to teach. And I was like, well, you understand that's like catch 22.
Hmm.
Didn't matter to them. So what did I do? I started teaching on the subways of Toronto. That's how that whole subway sketching started.
That's amazing, yeah.
Some stuff that people don't know, though, is that nobody came for the first year. It was literally just me, Kay a lot of
Yeah.
times, my buddy Jesse Schmidt, Jesse Winchester Schmidt, that moved to Vancouver. He would be with me a lot of the times, but that was it. For an entire year,
Hmm.
nothing happened. So that's why I want to talk about this first little thought. Trust. I was thinking about trust. Trust is created by the consistency of your actions times a good amount of duration, right? So if you keep doing the same thing over and over again for 20 years, like Euro loves sushi or dreams of sushi or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
then you're going to trust that if you take the time to buy a plane ticket and fly all the way there to Japan and, all this stuff, you're going to have an amazing meal.
Yeah, absolutely.
But say the person just came out, big shot cook, everybody likes their stuff, it's only been around for a month. Not as much trust. Same thing goes with art, right?
Yep.
And that was the thing that really had the subway sketching thing take off. I wonder if you're close enough to the mic.
Yeah, you guys hear me okay? There we go.
Yeah, you want to sit on my lap?
Uh,
Just kidding.
Not today. That's okay.
Okay, so yeah, that was like a big kind of profound little thought I had, where it was like, that was what made people come out in droves after to subway sketching.
Yep.
Because every Sunday, no matter what, I was there. Christmas Eve, New Year's, my birthday. I remember all of these things at one point occurred during subway sketching, but I was still there, right? And then, end of the story is that people start to trust it. People start to do it themselves. People start to name their own subway sketch groups in Istanbul, in Melbourne, in Paris, Bobby Chu's Subway Sketch Group. And that's what helped to catapult my art and have everybody take it seriously. That was the very first step.
Yeah, I remember. I remember coming on one. You invited me out for one, and I think it was the National Post had come to do a story on that, and it was a really great experience. I remember because there was, in this car there was, maybe in the subway car there was maybe 20 artists sketching away, and I had come a few times before that, and it was just this frenetic energy. It was great. It was so creative. You could tell all these people there because they wanted to be a part of this thing that you had created. And I remember one funny thing had happened because even though everyone is sitting there sketching, there was one photographer. There was the writer, the journalist, and there was the photographer. And photographers, snapping pictures of all of us sketching and whatnot. And this one lady lost her mind because she thought he was randomly taking a picture of her, and she, don't take a picture of me, and she was screaming. She didn't want her picture
I
taken.
remember that, yeah.
But of course, what happens when some lady starts freaking out and you've got a subway car full of artists? Everyone starts sketching her. So the
Yeah.
one thing that she was trying not to happen happened. Yeah, it was a really crazy experience, and I remember how much fun those Sundays were, and that consistency every single week.
And also, I remember that because that never happened. Nobody ever got upset. That was the best thing about the group, was that doors would, some lonely person would come onto the subway.
Mm-hmm.
They got their time to do on the subway, and doors close, and they see that everybody has sketchbooks. And then they see that, oh, they're all sketching that person. And then that person goes over and she looks over and sees the drawings of her and she's like, oh, that's funny. Let's check out the next drawing and next drawing. Oh, now it's my stop, and she gets off. Hey, bye, everybody.
Yeah.
It was a really great positive vibe. When you're sketching by yourself, you're a creep.
Yes, absolutely. Trust me, I know that from experience.
Especially like my outfit. I have like the ball cap and the sunglasses in a subway train underground. I'm a creep. Right?
Well, I remember that lady got upset not because people were sketching her, but because the guy was taking pictures of her. It was a totally different dynamic.
Yes. But we definitely want to get to some questions as well. I see them flooding in. So the first one is from ChiuStream regular CJ Rusoto asks, any advice on how to apply what you learn to your own personal and or fun drawings without being overwhelmed with everything? So I'm assuming what this person is saying is that the thing that makes CJ overwhelmed is that there's too much stuff to remember, too many things to think about, taking all this new information and applying it to their own drawings, right?
Right. For a situation like that, I'd say take it one thing at a time. If you really want to get good at life drawing, go there, work on gestures one day, study arms one day, study legs one day. Just do one thing at a time, and then slowly but surely, you're going to start developing muscle memory. You're going to start developing habits about integrating all of these specific lessons into the whole. And then once you do that consistently, the same way that you're going to subway sketching every single week, you're going to start building this repertoire, and you're going to build that sense of trust within yourself. That idea of consistency times time is going to equal trust doesn't just work on the exterior, it works on the interior almost more importantly.
Yeah, there's some things. As you were saying that, I was thinking, wow, I would even break it up into gestures of the hand for a while before you get into gestures of the arm. And then that's how I would teach it. If I was back at Sheridan or something and I was teaching life drawing again, yeah, they would probably be really bored in the beginning because I'd be like, okay, yeah, we're just doing gestures of the hand and let's move on to the head today. And then at the very end, let's bring it all together.
Yeah.
Because what I find is like beginners, I don't know what level CJ Rusoto's at, but beginners anyways, there's too much.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's too much, and then you start drawing these wiggly, Gumby looking gestures, and you don't even know what you're doing.
Yeah. And you compare your stuff with someone who's actually gone through those stages and has been consistent and has been working for years and years, and then you compare your stuff with them. You can't help but be overwhelmed. Put yourself back. Understand that these people that you're comparing yourself to, they were where you are.
Yeah. That's something that is such a good and such a simple little statement. Just understand, we were all where the absolute beginner was.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So next little thought here, which lines up with what you're saying. Get some skills.
Mm.
If you want to be taken seriously as an artist, that is one of the easiest ways, even though it's still difficult. We all have all the proper equipment to get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't need to be 6'6", 300 pounds of pure muscle. Not everybody can be like me. You know, but just kidding. You're just nodding. That's awesome. That's what a good friend you are. Yeah, so we all have the equipment. Get some skills. There's no avoiding this for long-term success. And I love, or I want to underline that whole entire thing, long-term success, because you can find many examples of people that are kind of like flash in the pan and they become huge. And you can point to them and go, yay, that person doesn't really have any technical artistic skill. They just took a fruit, slapped a face on it,
Mm-hmm.
and became huge. Now, Angry Orange, that really became huge, but that might be one of the small exceptions. However, I don't know if people even know of Angry Orange.
My kids had some toys, but that was just about it.
Yeah, so long term success, people, 5 years, 10 years is not long term success. If we want to stay an artist, that's what I'm after.
Yeah, and I think those skills, there's a certain point where a skill almost becomes a habit. And that once you've adopted that skill, so a skill is like when you're thinking about something and you're actually applying it. When it becomes a habit is when you've integrated it into your being and it becomes, part of your identity. And then you don't even have to think about it and it just sort of comes out. And that's when you start getting that uh, uh, consistent alignment with your ideals, and that's really what success is.
It's almost like learning is there's if you had to distill into two parts for art, it's like super analytical, really figuring out how the thing actually works. How does it exist? You know, the anatomy
Mm-hmm.
and all that stuff. And your stuff stiffens, it looks like cardboard, it
Mm-hmm.
looks ugly. And then once you really, really distill that, where you fully understand what it is that you're drawing, then all of a sudden you could draw it loose. Now, a simple example of this is draw 1,000 cars.
Mm-hmm.
Draw the same car 1,000 times. Look at your last drawing. Look at your first drawing. Your last drawing, you know all the anatomy of a car,
Yeah.
right? And it's going to be very gestural. It's going to be probably the best one. It'll probably be the quickest one, and it'll have every indication that you would need to bring it to fruition.
Yeah, I remember one of the best lessons that anyone ever gave me. One of my instructors, when I was trying to get into character design, he said, "Take one character, design a character, and draw 50 or draw 10 expressions, and then 20 expressions, and then 50 expressions, same character." And so you start going into it. So okay, yeah, all right, let's do this. So the first 10, happy, sad, angry, and you go through those basic states. And then once you start hitting 12, 13, 14, then you have to be like, okay, well, okay, maybe he's contemptuous and maybe he's nervous. And, what's the difference between concerned and worried? And then you start understanding subtleties and then you're going well beyond actually learning how to draw. You're learning how to communicate. You're learning how to go really, really deep inside the content. And one of the reasons I like doing the character design too is because it always ends up being a mirror. And you find so many ways of learning so much about yourself through that experience.
I love that whole entire thing because a lot of times we'll do 3 or 4 sketches and we're good and we're ready to move on to the finals.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, my favorite ideas stem from the 10th sketch. That was super difficult to come up with because you came up with everything else. And the great thing is, it's going to be original, it's going to be different. The very first bunch of sketches, those generally will be the most derivative,
Absolutely.
so um, yeah.
Yeah, you do echoes until you get your own voice.
Now, let's go to another question, shall we? This one's from Anonymous. Anonymous asks, I have a hard time accepting compliments about my work. Looking for harsh ones as honest feedback. Oh, what?
You're
I have
looking for a
a.
harsh, or harsh comment. I think she's looking for a more honest. She associates
How can I
criticism.
tell
Yeah,
a compliment is honest and not just politeness? Okay, so this person's always looking for like the harsh compliments.
right.
That's what she's looking for, the critiques. But she feels funny, or he feels funny. It's funny that you said that it's a she. Maybe it's because you got a daughter.
I
I don't know. But they, obviously they're feeling funny about when people say good things about their work, which I've seen many, many
hmm
times before. Man. And I always bring up Craig Mullins, but that's because he is like my artistic, hero, ultimate artistic hero. One of the best, if not the best, digital painter in the world. I said it. Prove me wrong. Anyways, uh, he hates all of his art.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I said it sometimes where I asked him, "What's your favorite painting?" And he was like, "They all tie for last." Right?
Brutal.
So some people are just, not really good with compliments for the rest of their lives.
hmm
He's if you know that about yourself, then just kind of take it with a grain of salt, smile, be polite, and move on. Uh,
I think the thing here is there's kind of a sub thread in this question that is about looking for some type of reassurance, right? You're talking about someone is critiquing your work, and you're saying, well, give me the harsh comments. Don't be polite to me. Give me something real,
okay,
right?
okay.
So I think that there's
And this person
yeah,
keeps getting good comments, and this person's looking to improve.
yes. And so there's a correlation that this person is making between harshness and honesty and their work.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, that is difficult. How do you get honest feedback? Well, it definitely has to feel welcoming.
Yeah.
Because like some people, they're so aggressive when they come up to me at an event or something and they show their portfolio, they're just like, man, I just had like the worst time ever with this last critique. And I didn't know what that person didn't know what they were saying. Can you look at it? Can you tell me if it's good or not? What do you think I'm going to say? Am I going to say, I don't know about this. This is actually really bad. No, I'm not going to say that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that those, I mean, it's always going to be rooted in fear. You're looking for some kind of assurance. You're looking for something to glam onto.
Sure, but where do you go for good, honest critiques? Do you have a group of friends? Perhaps that's what this person needs is just a small knit group of people that you can throw ideas at, and you're not looking for compliments. You're looking for critiques. The other part about it is I remember doing forums, like conceptart.org
hmm
and stuff like that, where you would put in your post, I'm looking for feedback. CC is welcome. I forget what CC stood for. Comments or critiques
Yes.
or something like that. Yeah, that that's what I would say. And we totally spent way too much time on that question. So why don't we go on to Hassan's question? Hassan asks, how can we paint manually drawn characters in Photoshop? Can you share some step-by-step process or technical tips? I know what Hassan's talking about. Hassan's talking about the fact that when you draw in Photoshop, it almost feels like you're drawing with your left hand,
Mm.
right? You can't do the precise line work as much. You could do pretty good C curves. You could do pretty good straight lines. S curves, much harder, even though it's such a simple thing. Everybody knows how to draw S. So this is the tip, Hassan. I kind of look at it as draw one end a little bit, draw the other end a little bit, draw the middle a little bit, start to connect them all. That's how I tend to draw things so that they're nice and smooth. The other thing about this is that now in Photoshop, there are smoothing options for your brush. So turn up the smoothing until your lines are nice and crispy and aerodynamic and whatever. That should help you.
And don't neglect consistency. Make sure that you're actually practicing enough. Make sure you're doing it every single day, same time of day.
Time, consistency,
Absolutely.
trust. There you
Yeah.
go. Taken seriously as an artist. You know, uh, I also remember this point in my life where my parents started to understand that being an artist was actually the best thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because of that exact thing. Consistency of effort. I was just nonstop drawing every time they would see me. I'm always drawing, painting, studying, whatever, over a long period of time. And then they realized steering me away from art was a mistake.
It's almost like the more consistent you were with that, you started becoming more taken seriously as an artist.
Yes, yes, my friend. Yes, you're getting it, Matt. Yes. And we can also think of things in popular media and stuff
Mm-hmm.
where it wasn't very popular in the beginning when it first came out. Then they kept pushing that. They kept pushing that sound, or they kept pushing that idea or whatever. And then sooner or later, people, they turn around.
Mm-hmm. Or they found the right market. A good example of that is Rugrats. Rugrats, when it first came out, it actually flopped. It almost got canceled after the very first season until they rejigged it and they realized, after showing it a little bit more in syndication, that the people that were watching it, they originally pitched it at kids, but the ratings completely tanked. Then they
Wow.
realized it was the moms that were watching because the moms were relating with the experience of raising these babies, and so they aged
Really?
the babies up a little bit. They got all this new vision, or all these new eyes looking at the show, and then it turned into a $200 million franchise.
Mm-hmm. Uh,
So
yeah,
sometimes it's who you show it to that is
yeah.
actually going to reveal the value that's inherent in the project.
Love it. Uh, let's go on to the next little thought. So, what do you think about this? The best way to change how people treat you is by changing yourself.
Uh, Absolutely, it's inside out.
We've heard this saying in many different ways, but yeah, I just want to bring that up again because, say, perfect example is sometimes we feel like we have these triggers. If my dad asks me, where am I going? Or, like, what am I doing with my life? I'm going to lose it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or whatever the scenario is. My boyfriend, girlfriend complains about my socks or something like that on the floor. Sorry, Kay. I'll pick them up. You know, triggers, right? But if you realize that and you go, well, yeah, the trigger is actually my choice to turn that trigger on. And I could turn on something else. I could turn on a big smile and go, laugh it off.
Mm-hmm.
That person has no choice but to treat you differently.
Yeah, it's true. When you start from the inside, when you start saying, you know what, I'm going to create my reality here, and you start treating yourself the way that you want other people to treat you, they will follow. They will actually do that.
Now, I'm going to bring up something about you, Matt. Like, you created a movie.
I did. I did.
You cut your teeth last year on your very first film.
Mm-hmm.
You are not necessarily known as a writer, right? You're an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And for an artist to pitch a story, to create a story, it can be very difficult.
Absolutely.
I remember Nico and Sora Light, there's tons of hurdles. So I'm sure, like, you had to kind of change yourself and how people perceive you.
It's 100%. I had to, and in fact, the way I did that, because I'm lucky enough to have been teaching at Centennial College character design animation for the past 15 or so years.
Damn!
15 years
Oh
now.
my god!
15 years.
What?
And now it took me about 5 years to actually get good at teaching, and then the next 5 years to really understand how to communicate. And the last 5 years, I would say that I've been pretty good at it. But
Wow.
the most important thing about it is I learned how to be a good student. I learned what all the good students were doing, and because obviously as the teacher, these are the students that you want. So I started realizing that if I want to have my ideas as recognized as valuable as a legitimate writer, I have to study and become as good a writer as anyone else. So I started studying screenwriting. I went through every single book. I took notes. I filled up hundreds of pages of handwritten notes in three different fonts so that I could three different types of handwriting so I could actually organize myself. I said I wanted to be the best possible student ever.
Yeah.
And just by writing the stuff down, it changed who I was and how I saw myself. So by the end of reading all these books and doing all this and writing scripts and writing and writing and writing, I looked at myself in the mirror and said, okay, I'm a writer now.
Now, a lot of times when we have made that change in our minds, we're starting. People are not on board. So we have to be ready for this as well.
Yeah.
We have to be ready for the doubters, the people that are totally thinking that you are going to quit, pursuing, creating your own comic book, your own story, or whatever, within weeks. You got to realize that's kind of like almost like the barrier of entry.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the test that you will have to pass for sure. And then there'll be many times throughout the journey where it's the same thing. People don't believe, whatever. Nico and the Sword of Light, same kind of thing. Animated comic book as an app did poorly in the beginning for 3 weeks, then shot up like a rocket because we kept going. We kept being consistent. We kept saying, this is what we're doing now. And then people caught on and people realized, became a TV show, won some awards. Yeah.
Yeah. When it comes to doubters, always, always, always remember that doubters are simply doubting themselves through you.
Really? Wow. Okay, I gotta think about that one.
Think
a little
about
bit.
that, right?
Doubting myself through you.
Yes.
What does that mean? I don't even understand what that means.
So there's a psychological term I'm sure everyone's familiar with is projection.
Okay, yeah.
So when you critique someone, what you're really doing is you're seeing something about yourself. You're imprinting a weakness of yourself upon that person.
Okay, this one's a little difficult for me to hang on to. Because I'm just saying, like, okay, you see, I was going to say Michael Jordan go play basketball, but he doesn't even, he's old now.
You're dating yourself here, Bobby.
Totally. So Kawhi Leonard. Okay,
There you
see
go.
Kawhi
Modernize.
Leonard and you're like, what? You're like, you can't play basketball because you're projecting yourself onto Kawhi Leonard? No.
To some extent, sure you are. Or like, think about it. Of course you are. Of course because how many people can play basketball like Kawhi Leonard?
Okay. Well, that I feel like that's stretching it a bit. So, yeah.
Look,
I understand what you're saying.
When it comes to personal people coming up to you and doubting you and telling you that, hey, maybe you shouldn't be doing this, it's because there's a fear inside of them that they want you to accept on yourself.
That I can accept and that I agree. Yeah, I feel like it's to certain extents.
Sure.
Can we say that?
Sure.
Awesome. The other one is a very difficult one. This thought is actually, it's super easy to do. Everybody can do it, but it's difficult. And that is walk the talk or people stop listening. Now that's something that, it's like start an online school. Everybody, you know how many people were like, I was totally going to do that. Well, why didn't you do it? All these things like, Lightbox Expo, I was planning on doing a show, blah, blah, blah. No, you weren't. You were just thinking about it. There's such a big difference from like thinking about it or doing it. And a little tip, next big idea you have, unless you need to tell people, don't tell anybody. Just do it. And then bring it out when it's done and see how people react. See how people treat you after. Because the best way to change how people treat you is by changing yourself, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Actions. Yeah. I mean, everyone always says actions speak louder than words, but really, really dig into that concept. The truth is actions they don't just speak louder than words. Actions are more true than words are. Because you can say you're an artist till you're blue in the face, but unless you're producing art, unless you're challenging yourself, unless you're growing and creating new things all the time, it's not going to happen. You are not that person.
Now, Anonymous asks, are you thinking of getting a storyboard teacher on Schoolism? Maybe a Del Carmen. I love this question. I'll tell you why. Okay, first, storyboarding. Yes, there's already a storyboarding class on Schoolism taught by the one and only Chris Pern. He is awesome. He is a director on a Netflix film right now. And then the question, okay? So, oh, by the way, you can see on the bottom of the screen, hey, there is a sale going on Schoolism, and it's about to end. So get on it. Tell your folks, tell your grandma, tell everybody that likes to draw, because this is a hot one. Usually, 1 year subscription, a year of education is usually, honestly, it's like tens of thousands of dollars in many schools, with instructors that have done a fraction of what Schoolism instructors have accomplished. Schoolism, an entire year subscription is usually $300, around $300. Right now, it's $198 because it's the winter sale. Get on it. New Year's resolutions, go for it and tell others. Okay, so I want to talk about what's so funny about this question. Are you thinking of getting a storyboard teacher on Schoolism? Maybe a Del Carmen. Now, this person is referring to Ronnie Del Carmen or Louis Del Carmen, or I think the third one is Steve Del Carmen. Each one of them are storyboard artists. Each one of them are siblings.
Talented
How cool
family.
is that?
Talented family right there.
Ronnie, co-director of Inside Out, did storyboard the first 10 minutes of Up. That like was the most memorable part of the whole freaking film. Louis Del Carmen, he was on Frozen 2. He is also a story artist. He's a director now, I believe. And then Steve has been working with Fox on, I think, Family Guy or something for a super long time. That show has been pretty successful. You know what I mean? So there is a storyboard class. Super long answer. Sorry. Okay, let's move on. Another thought. Okay? We all have unlimited artistic power, but effort is the key to unlocking it. True or false?
I would certainly say true. I mean, this really echoes what you were saying before about walking the talk, right? Without effort, without consistent action, without actually doing it, you're never that literally is the key to that door.
Yeah. Yeah. As I'm reading this again, after writing the darn thing, I'm like disagreeing with it now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I'm kind of disagreeing with it because it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I agree. Effort is the key to unlocking it, but what are you unlocking? You don't even know. Logic will find you the right door. That's what I was missing there.
Yeah, I think you're touching on the concept of potential. And potential is this evasive, ethereal thing that we all have. We never quite live up to. It's kind of this vacuum of this unknown future, right? So how do you actually break into that? How do you start? When it's like, oh, that person, no, they're not fulfilling their potential. I really want to do this so I can fulfill my potential. I don't know a single human being on the planet that's ever fulfilled their potential.
Yeah, you can't.
Exactly. So how do you maximize that opportunity? And I think effort is the best way to maximize your opportunity to absolutely manifest your potential.
Yeah, but the aim, like, what are you aiming at? That is a crazy key component of it. So it's like you can swing as hard as you want with a golf club. Doesn't mean that's going to go the furthest because you swung it the hardest. You could swing it at 80%, have better aim, and then,
Technique always beats power there.
I'm just saying more your aim. Your aim. Like we can put effort into many things. We can put in 100% effort in running into a wall, thinking that we can break through that wall.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's that same sort of thing as, if you don't know where you're going, any road will lead you there, right? So get yourself an ideal, orient yourself in the right direction.
Love that. Yes. Yes. Why don't we go on to another question? So this one's from Anonymous. Hey, Bobby and Matt. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Was wondering, is there any advice you've given in the past, but now think differently of? I do. Do
Yeah.
you have one?
I do. I would say understand the value of relationships and networking a lot more
Oh,
in the early stages of your career.
you
You know,
don't feel like you were doing that in the beginning.
I absolutely was not. I was not working on social skills so much at the beginning as I was working on my own development. And then
Mm-hmm.
I realized that so many of my opportunities came from actually just helping other people and putting other people first. Which I mean, it's a long story, but that's one of the things that led to me getting my movie greenlit was actually helping other people and putting other people first. Whereas at the beginning of my career, it was like, think of yourself first. The biggest thing for me is when I started my career, I said, okay, the key to business, the key to life is work as little as possible, make as much money as possible. Now, I do not say that. Now I say create as much value for someone and provide as much service as you possibly can. That's what's going to give you the success that you want.
Love it. I would love to delve into the film that we're talking about a little
Sure.
bit. And before we tell people what it was, can you tell the people who starred in the film?
Yes, in fact, of any animated movie, it had more Oscar winners than any other film ever
So who are
made.
some of the actors?
So we had Jeremy Renner, Alec Baldwin, James Franco, Angelica Houston, Omar Sy, Heidi Klum, who will not stop calling me. I get really annoyed with that. No, that's not true. But yeah, we had an amazing cast.
And so, what was the title of the film?
Arctic Dogs, originally pitched as Arctic Justice Thunder Squad, which that was my I don't know anything about distribution and marketing, obviously, and they changed the title, but it went out as Arctic Dogs last November.
And so, everybody cuts their teeth on something,
Oof, yeah.
right? And so, how did the film do critically?
Critically, not so well. Not so well.
This is a
And yeah.
very, it's like artist to artist.
Hmm.
These are all creatives out there. Now that, the dust has settled, where do you feel like, um, you know, it could have shifted and went a different direction?
Honestly, there was God, there was so much. It was the first animated film that this studio had ever done. It was the first full animated film that I had any kind of creative control on, and I headed up development of it. Right. For the first 2 years, I had hired all the people development wise. The production designer. I brought in the directors, the character designers, all that stuff. So and to this day, I'm very happy about the look of the
The
film.
look looks great.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great looking film, and considering that the budget was actually very low, there were a lot of really clever things that they used to sort of hide how low the budget was, and really spend a lot of time on and money on the fur and that kind of stuff. But there was a lot of rewrites of the script. There were a lot of some squabbling internally between
So do you feel like, I just want to,
yeah.
sorry, I'm always cutting to the chase.
That's no worries.
So do you feel like it was like you could have had stronger kind of leadership skills? Because I'm saying this because, it's like your first thing. You could feel kind of intimidated. You could feel like I am not the person in charge kind of thing. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, I'll listen to you. You want a turtle because your daughter has a pet turtle. Okay, I'm going to write a turtle into the film. Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I certainly learned a lot about leadership in that role by making a lot of ridiculous mistakes, accommodating the wrong people, doing the wrong things, treating people the wrong way, not giving micromanaging too much here and there. But
So what would you
yeah,
do differently going into the future? You have your second film. How are you doing it differently? What are the main kind of key points here?
absolutely empowering individual artists,
Mm.
giving people more of a voice, letting like not trying to control everything so much, being a little bit more open to hearing other people and putting my ego aside.
Now, something that I'm trying to connect. I don't know if the dots connect here, but you did say that you had a much smaller budget than a normal, big like animated theatrical film.
Sure.
So then I'm thinking perhaps you weren't able to hire people that you could give the reins to as much, because perhaps they're newer,
Yeah,
they're less experienced, and if you gave them the reins, you'd have a very different, perhaps even, not as successful film.
absolutely. Yeah. Simply put, yes.
Yes, yes, I fully understand that. Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
It was
Really
a great
great
experience,
lesson.
though. Incredible
Oh,
experience.
and you got something across the finish line. That's something that
Yeah,
people don't realize. Uh, like the sixth film that I worked on was the first one that came out,
yeah.
right? And it was another six films afterwards that another one came out, I believe. So it can get very difficult when you're in there from the ground level.
Yeah, the best thing it did for me was to help me identify myself as a creator.
Mm.
You know, I walked away from that at the sole credit on, or well, I got a few credits on it, but the main credit that I really built myself up from was creator. You know, based on an idea by Matthew Lyon. You know, that seeing my name up there by itself before
Yeah.
the black screen, it was, you know, still with the mountains and stuff in the
Sweet.
background. That was, I mean, that's the best part of the movie for me, right?
Yeah.
So that, and then being able to see that in the theater with my kids, I don't care what a single critic says.
Yeah.
To watch my kids enjoy that and see their dad do that, they now think, oh my God, dad made a movie. I can do anything.
Oh wow.
That's after 5 years of working on a project like that, that's the best takeaway from it.
That's fantastic. Awesome. So let's go on to another question here. And by the way, thank you everybody for all your questions.
Mm-hmm.
Anonymous asks, any tips on ideation? Do your ideas start from concepts like a personal brief or with visual stimulus like shapes on a page or inspiration from reference? Uh, I don't know about you, but I feel like my ideation process is like a slow cooker.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes a really long time, and I keep
Sure.
putting little bits and pieces in there and letting it simmer, coming back,
But
taking a
what are
look
the
at it.
bits that you put in? What are the first ingredients that you put in your slow cooker?
Uh, just like a one sentence kind of question or situation,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
See, I go a little different. I won't ask a question. I'll pick a theme that I know is grounded in truth.
Mm-hmm.
All right, something like, um, you know, believe in yourself and you can be more empowered than, you know, anything else.
Yeah.
Once you have that an idea that's true, and it has to be founded in truth, and it has to be a truth that you really believe in, then you can put anything else into that stew and it's gonna taste good.
See, I do it the other way around. I think of some like extravagant whatever world story, whatever, and then I try to find the honest, relatable message or subtext
Mm-hmm.
to the story. Like Star Wars is about a family.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, it's about lightsabers. It's about all this stuff, but really at the core, it's
Mm-hmm.
like this family.
Yeah.
Um, Finding Nemo is about not Nemo,
Yeah, it's not
but
about coral
Marlin.
reefs. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
about Marlin and his, a father letting go of not babying the child as
yeah.
much, right?
When I'm coming up with an idea for a show or a film now, I think what's important to me, what is something, you know, that I know I would like to. What's a lesson that I would love to teach my kids? What's something that I wish I knew 30 years ago, 35 years, when I was a little kid? What is something that I wish I knew coming right out of college that I can put in some type of visual form, tell that story somehow? But it has to be true. You have to believe it. It has to be, yeah. And the more true something is, the more universal it's going to be. You can tell the story of Beauty and the Beast. You can go to any culture in the world and don't judge a book by its cover, which is really this. That's
Yeah.
that's the moral of that story. It's universal. That is a story that everyone agrees with. I don't know necessarily if the story of Frozen, for example, I don't even know if I could tell that story. I don't really know who the protagonist is. Now, that may be a bad example because it was crazy successful, obviously, and led to a sequel. But but even the truth in that one was that there is a love between the two sisters. There's something that everyone can kind of relate to from a sibling perspective, from a familial
Yeah,
perspective.
that was definitely like the biggest thing that I got out of it was like the connection between the two sisters and everything. I have two nieces, and seeing them and how it affected them,
Mm.
like they definitely related, and they definitely got it because I heard that song "Let It Go" for like ever. Ugh. Thank goodness that phase is over. Liked it at the beginning, but just consistency plus time.
Trust that it's going to annoy the hell out of you.
Yes, yes. All right. Let's go to the next question. This one is from Sheen Chin. Sorry, X. I'm just gonna call you
Yeah.
X because that's way cooler. So was once told we can't be taken seriously until we make money from our works via parents. What do you think of this? I'm learning to be patient.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? That was something that my parents definitely were afraid of, that I would be sitting on the corner, outside a shopping mall, drawing caricatures. Um, hey, people do that. They make great livings. I'm not dogging it, but that's what my parents were afraid of. That's what they didn't want for me. And that's not what I wanted, anyways. So, like for me, I don't know this person's situation, but for me, I had school so that it wasn't like, oh, I need to make money. I need to show that I was very serious about art, and that was it. There was no opportunity to make money because I'm in school, I'm a student.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have that problem. But, um,
I don't. For me, I think this actually goes back to what we were saying before about projection, right?
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what your parents are doing here is they're saying your job, your vocation as an artist is not legitimate until you get some type of financial retribution, some financial payment for what you're doing, because they've always associated their level of professionalism with a job, with a currency, with the fact that they do something, they get paid for it. Well, if you're doing art, unless you find a way to get paid for it, then you're not a professional, right? So, truthfully, to answer that question, I think that's really about you talking to your parents and getting them to understand that that's a paradigm that they've sort of built up in their own mind about art, money, and professionalism. And that's something that you can either change their mind about or just start making some money with your work.
The thing I start to think about is what are the parents like? Because the parents could be so many different types of parents. Some parents are absolutely super loving and whatever, and then some parents are complete like crazy people
Mm-hmm.
that are so strict. So if it's the really really strict type, how I would do it, knowing everything that I know now, I would get a job, and I would dedicate the next 3 4 years of my life to learning art and getting better. This means literally the next 3 or 4 years of my life. So after dinner, on the bus,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, every weekend, I am not coming out with you unless I'm bringing my sketchbook and I'm drawing seriously. It's not just doodling while everybody's talking and stuff. I would
Mm-hmm.
always be studying. I'd always be whatever. and building up my freelance to a point where I can quit my regular job. And that's exactly what I did at Nelvana because I couldn't get an art job. I was a data manager and I was taking freelance. I was every waking moment, every spare second. Literally, if I had one spare minute, I would bring out a piece of paper and I'd start drawing. I'd start doing something. And then it got to a point where I was working 8 hours at my job, 8 hours at night, traveling in between. It was horrible. About 4 hours of sleep, and then something had to give, and then then you jump ship onto the artist ship, and then you should be fine because now you're making money.
Yeah. And you know what? There's, as a, I, again, I don't know obviously your situation either with your parents or the relationship or anything, but make a piece of art for them, right? Make a piece of art and make it from the heart,
I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one, Matt.
I would try to bridge that gap by communicating with them through a level of intimacy.
Just by you saying that, I understand. I think I understand more of how your parents are like. Very loving kind of people.
They're great. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, my parents love me. My dad is very honest, and he'll be like, "What is this? Why do you draw this weird stuff?" Like I could totally picture him saying that. And I love my dad. He's awesome. Greatest dad ever. But I could totally picture him saying that. Why don't you draw that nice vase over there with those flowers? If you can make it really real, I'd be very impressed. I'm just like, no, I don't want to.
Okay.
That's not my art.
Then you have two conflicting paradigms. Then you have his idea of what an artist should be and how he values that, and then your idea.
Well, I'm also assuming that there's going to be parents out there that are not, they will not like that piece of art because they already don't want you to be an artist.
Yep.
So, I don't know. Depends on how your parents are. I hope you weren't looking for a concrete answer to that, but at least you can have some things to think about. And I hope everybody could have a few things to think about after this stream. And the number one thing to think about is what are you being consistent with over a long period of time? Because that's what people will trust that you are and will do. If you want to head in another direction, then you got to be consistent with that over a period of time. This is Bobby Chiu and Matt Lyon signing off. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.